Gracias, José, para todos. Me llamo Adra Montenegro y mi español es más o menos, estoy presente en inglés. Welcome, KCD Colombia. So, like I said, my name's Adra Montenegro. Thank you for that warm introduction, Jose. Let me just make sure I know how this clicker works. Do I point to you? It's okay. So who am I? I'm a program manager for community events specifically at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. I joined last year in June of 2022, specifically to work on the KCD program and elevate it to the next level. And so thankfully we increased from 16 KCDs last year to 30 this year already. And then now I also work on the Cloud Native community groups. So a lot of people host 1 to 2 hour meetups virtually or in person. I know that Angel and Jose have built a huge community with Samantha leading a lot of virtual conversations online. So thank you for all your efforts there. I think it's a beautiful collaboration that I've seen so far at this event. And who was I before CNCF? Well, I worked on global events with O'Reilly Media. I traveled the world doing content with the program committee and program chairs of each event, whether it be data, DevOps, security, software architecture. And there I got to meet great people, like in the top picture, Kelsey Hightower, who's in the middle holding my face on a cardboard. He actually was instrumental with Kubernetes at Google and helped work on its initial phases and iterations. And then he bootstrapped the community at CNCF and was nominated as one of the top ambassadors for CNCF. And then at the bottom, this was an event called Solid. It was more around robotics. Tim O'Reilly is behind me. I'm wearing the black and white shirt. Tim O'Reilly is considered the godfather of technology in Silicon Valley. He was actually the first publisher of programming guides for programming languages back in 1978. And then this is just kind of an example of the keynote stages and all the rehearsals I've been to through different events. This one specifically was Velocity Conference. And Priyanka, so Priyanka Sharma, most of you should know her, but she is the general manager of CNCF. And I had the pleasure of meeting her through her speaking opportunities at OSCON, which is the open source conference that O'Reilly had as their flagship event. All right, enough about me. Let's get started. So what does cloud native mean anyway? There's a definition, but I really want to point out that it empowers organizations to build and run scalable applications, mostly on the public, private, or hybrid clouds. A lot of these techniques enable loosely coupled systems to be resilient, manageable, and observable. And most importantly, it allows engineers and developers to iterate fast. So why should organizations adopt cloud native technology? Well, better resiliency, and then also you can run more services on less servers. I'm kind of going backwards here. And then also the multi-cloud opportunity too, and the hybrid cloud opportunities. But again, I want to stress the velocity that cloud native technologies allow for engineers and developers. Some people want to know, hey, how do I start an open source program office at my organization? Or how do I talk to leadership about this? This came up in a roundtable yesterday with Chris, our CTO of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And this is a resource I added last minute. It's todogroup.org. All right, so the Cloud Native Computing Foundation is under the umbrella of the Linux Foundation. So the Linux Foundation started in the year 2000, and the Cloud Native Computing Foundation was founded in 2015. And so we foster and sustain the ecosystem of open source. and through vendor-neutral projects, which we have 809 projects. And we bring together the world's top developers and users through events like KubeCon and Cloud Native Con and KCDs, through our wonderful ambassadors and community that put on these events. So how does CNCF make innovations accessible? So we have patterns that are world successful patterns, like we have a technical oversight committee that leads community leaders, and then a governing board, which is more on the business side. So the governing board does the accounting and the marketing, for example. Then our memberships, as I mentioned, we have 809 members right now. They're platinum, gold, silver. Silver make up the majority. And then we also have academic, nonprofit, and end user supporters as well. And then ambassadors. We just relaunched our ambassador program. Angel is an ambassador. We also have Sergio Mendez here from Guatemala, who's also an ambassador. And they span all over the world, and it's a new process that I'll dive into later. But they're essentially an extension of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which helps us make the cloud native technology ubiquitous, or everywhere. So I talked a little bit about the projects that we have. There are different levels for projects. We start at the bottom with the sandbox, and then we go up to the innovators, incubating, and then the graduated level. So these are projects like Kubernetes and Prometheus, for example. And then there's this big gap, el abismo. So how do you cruzando el abismo? And while I am not the one to tell you that, communities really can get you there, like this, KCD. So how do you start contributing? You're already doing it by attending this event. You want to connect with people to learn. And then once you learn from events like this, you can also attend workshops or do online programs and certifications. And then share. Once you get to a point where you feel like you can share your experience or use case, this is something that I can't stress enough, because there's the intimidation factor of just starting out with cloud native. And if you hear somebody else's story, then you know, I can do it too, right? KCDs. Jose gave a great example of what a KCD is, so community-led events. I'd like to say that I had a big part in this, but they did a lot of work, the organizers of this event, which is the community. I just gave them resources, created a structure for the program, and guided them along the way. But pointing out our growth from 2022 to 2023, we had 31% in person, and now this year, 97%, so nearly 100% are in person. Although you can still, yeah, it's very exciting. People are definitely eager to be back connecting face to face. But you can still do virtual, and this is a great opportunity for people that might not be able to travel. So there's also a hybrid model as well. I know KCD Colombia was streaming a lot of talks at this show, so that's an opportunity as well. All right, so just take a minute, look at the global representation of KCDs here. We have these events spanning across Latin America, India, China, North America, and then also Europe happens to be our largest community for KCDs. These are the ones that have finished so far this year. I'm not putting KCD Colombia on there yet because we're not done, but on average, 200 to 400 people attend these KCDs. KCD France is the anomaly with 1,000 attendees. And then KCD Bengaluru at the top just finished their event last weekend with 670 attendees. So just know across the other KCDs, the average again is 200 to 400 attendees for a more intimate community-driven event. So after KCD Colombia, we have 20 more that will be happening this year. Upcoming one is KCD Guatemala. I mentioned Sergio. So I just want to promote this event. It's virtual. The first day is para los estudiantes, And the second day is para los profesionales. And if you're interested in hosting a KCD in your own city, this takes you to our GitHub repository and gives you terms and conditions on how to start that process. I highly encourage that everybody at least have 3 organizers, ideally from different companies, and you have at least an ambassador or a CNCF member. So again, there's 809 members, so if you have an employee from one of those companies, you're good. KCD@cncf.io is a good contact for me and my colleague Katie Greenlee, who works on this program as well. All right, so I talked a little bit about cloud native community groups. We did a lot of cleanup because we went from Meetup to this Bevy platform, which allows more analytics and a virtual aspect. And so we now have 140 active global chapters around 51 countries and 132 cities. These are some benefits, and we're constantly iterating. So one of my favorites is the connecting of the organizers on an exclusive Slack channel, and then also through working groups and office hours, and just getting feedback from everyone. What works, what doesn't. And so this is a great way to contribute on how to make these community groups more successful. And we just constantly are growing the program and processes. So one of the ways is CNCF has a really large following on social media, so we help you promote your upcoming 1 to 2 hour events or meetups. And then also there's a little monetary incentive if you host your first 2 events within a 90-day period. And then to stay active, at least 1 meeting every 90 days. And it doesn't have to be like this, where there's a presenter and there's an audience. It could be a working group to contribute towards the Latin American glossary, for example, that Chris Anasek pointed out yesterday. So there's lots of creative ways to get together. All right, so this is a form if you want to start a community group. It takes you to a Google form. And ideally, we just want to see your background in terms of your connection to the cloud native ecosystem. Also, your contributions in GitHub, if you've started there yet, as well as any experience in communities. All right, so the whole point is to contribute towards projects, right? So I told you where to get started, but in these community groups, you can definitely contribute to one of the many projects, 157 to be exact to this day. These are the graduated and the incubating. Then there's the sandbox projects. It's intimidating, I know it's a lot, but, oops, there's, I had a QR code, but I guess it's not in here. There's a landscape on cncf.io that you can go to view, to navigate these projects. All right, so I mentioned the ambassador program being impactful by extending the cloud native, making it ubiquitous. We have 155 ambassadors worldwide. We just revamped this program. My colleague Katie Greenlee is leading it, and we do 2 submissions per year, so we'll have another application process in September, and then we'll redo our ambassadors every year. Whereas before, it was a 5-year gap, and there wasn't accountability. So now we hold our ambassadors accountable in terms of how they contribute and create communities. And then there's also the mentorship program. So this is where you can look into 3 different programs. We have LFX, which is the Linux Foundation program, and then Google Summer of Code and Outreachy. Example of a mentor is Yuan Tang. He's a chair of a few different projects as well as a technical advisor. And so just kind of to give you an idea of what a mentor looks like at CNCF. And then also, there's a blog post, so you could read a little bit more about the process, how you can participate, what do you do during a mentorship, the challenges and the achievements faced. And then how to become a mentee. So a lot of you are students here. We have incentives for becoming a mentee. Some of them are monetary incentives, depending on what projects you're looking to contribute towards. So the importance is building the community and networking with not only other mentees, but people that are movers and shakers in the industry of cloud native. And then you get the recognition through those benefits that I was telling you about. Oh, that's the landscape that I was talking about earlier. So if you want to explore the landscape of projects, you can go there. All right, so showcase your impact by speaking. This is kind of the goal for people. Once you get through your connecting and networking, you definitely want to share your experience, like I said earlier. So come to a KCD and talk, and then eventually speak at a KubeCon Cloud Native Con. Speaking of, we open registration tomorrow for KubeCon Cloud Native Con in Chicago. And a gift we're giving to everybody here is a 15% discount that I'll give our organizers to hand out in a follow-up email. But this will be early bird pricing tomorrow, so it's going to be the lowest level pricing. Katie Greenlee, she's my colleague. She has 10 years experience in events, specifically at the Linux Foundation. So she helped run KubeCon and Cloud Native Con. And now she's over on the community team. So I'm very thankful for her efforts, especially with giving to the ambassador program and restructuring it. So I just need to acknowledge her. But more importantly, the organizers. Can I just get a round of applause for our organizers? From left to right, we have Jose, Elias, Angel, Chris, Natalia, and Samantha. And I couldn't be more impressed with their efforts and just how everything turned out. The program is awesome and the connections are great. I'm impressed with Latin America in general and people coming from Costa Rica, Guatemala, Puerto Rico, Mexico. And it's just really great to see the collaboration among these different countries and the willingness to grow as a Latin American community in the whole. So please connect with me. I met with a lot of you yesterday, and I hope to meet with more of you today, but that's my LinkedIn profile. I mentioned the KCD at cncf.io if you're more interested in doing a program yourself, and then meetups at cncf.io, which is the greatest starting point for communities. So please reach out to me there. Gracias para tu tiempo.